Good morning to everyone. Thank you, Gerson. We met each other in Guatemala. It was a very special time. We started at work with along the other people. Pastor Neri Perez. It's a beautiful time that I had there. I had an opportunity to meet many more leaders who invested in my life, and they helped me walk uh, this journey. And that's why I am passionate, because every place where the Lord has allowed me to serve, he has surrounded me with leaders who they walk alongside me in my ministerial spiritual journey, and the forming of mentors, the mentor as a person who forms other mentors. Yeah, it's a passion to me, because that is a motivation in my ministry to invest in their development, not only to identify good leaders, but to identify good mentors, and to be part of this, walking alongside others and helping them grow. So I hope that in this time we can learn together. May this be a productive time, a time of blessing where we can encourage each other, and may we be inspired, and ultimately that the Holy Spirit may work in our lives. Several years ago, in an initiative similar to this one, we were talking with a group of leaders that we wanted to be sensitive to the Holy Spirit. And at the end of the session, we would say, how did the Spirit touch you in this session? What was the special about this session? So I encourage you that with this same disposition of your heart, this openness of both our mind, our heart, may we be ready to receive the touch of the Spirit, especially in the conversations that we will have in our small groups. May we do it this way. I also thank the interpreters. Thank you for your work. I encourage you, if anytime I'm going very fast, that I get, if I get excited, please interrupt me. Feel free to do that, and I will pause. And if there's something that is not clear, I can repeat it so that we all can participate uh, of the content that I have developed, that I have shared with you all. I understand that you all have your uh, manual of your student book. That's important, especially for the small group activities. So if you don't have it at hand, I ask you to please have it ready, whether you have printed it or you download it in your tablet, your cell phone, because there are instructions that we need to follow as we do the small group activities. So finally, yeah, thank you, Milton, for the opportunity to share with you all. We've walked together for many years in the leadership development, equipping them, providing trainings for them, and to think how the church can come together in the Mesoamerica region for it to become a mentorship culture, that it may be something natural, not just a program, not an isolated program, but it can be the DNA of the Mesoamerica leadership, and that encourages me. So it is an honor to be part of this initiative. So I'm going to share from the platform a, a fellow, just another fellow uh, pastor, a fellow youth leader. I am enjoying the experience of mentoring others and the experience of being mentored. But in the last few years, I've enjoyed the opportunity to go deep a little more in the mentorship area. And I've participated in seminars like this, and I've been part of conferences that has uh, helped me grow and So, and I've been trying to systemize all this information and organize it. So today you're going to receive you're like my first readers in a way, in some of the essays that I have tried to work on, particularly in the formation of mentors. So with that in mind, I'm going to ask Milton to help me with the presentation, to for us to see the subjects that we're going to touch on this session. And so we have to ask the question, why is it important to develop mentors? That is a question for us to reflect upon, that demands a very large, big answer. But why? Why do we develop mentors? We are going to use a Bible passage, Exodus chapter 2, where he talks about the birth of Moses, just to see a practical case as we talk about the need to form leaders. We may assume this the task of forming others, other mentors, other leaders, and then we can talk about some um, principles of mentorship. Then we're going to talk about skills that to develop in the mentor, and finally, we are going to share about the the sharing the vision and mentorship development, and from my practical and my experience. So that is what we're going to be working on today. After uh, point number 2, we're going to have a break. We're going to have small groups, and on the second half of the content, we're going to talk about guiding principles in the mentorship, skills to develop in the mentor, and how to share the vision on mentorship development with others. So we are going to move to the next uh, slide. There are 4 uh, quotes that I wanted to share with you all. Let us reflect upon, individually reflect upon, what is it, what does that make you think, or what do these quotes tell you? What do these quotes tell you? The first 2 quotes that I'm going to share, I heard them in a seminar like the one we're having right now with the district superintendents and leaders at the national level. And I heard this from a leader that was a leader for many years. And so he said, if I could go back in time when I was just starting out in the ministry and I could do something different, it would be to find a mentor. The second quote, this is something I heard from a different person in the training, as we were talking about training and the importance of it. Discreetly, a person raised his hand and he said, Brother David, this is really good. You have encouraged us, you have inspired us. I would love to mentor others, but I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to do it because nobody did it to me. Yeah. I buy what you're selling, but the question is, how do I do it? Nobody did it with me. I'm not giving you more context than just where I heard these phrases, these quotes that are similar. So this uh, quote, we saw it in the video. Gary Rich, he says, the journey of life does not have to be walked alone. Being a mentor is a rewarding opportunity to share with others what you have learned in your journey and to help them move towards the best version of themselves. And finally, a 4th quote. that I read it in one of the John Maxwell books, The Development of Leaders. Um, in one of the chapters, John Maxwell says, shares this idea. Most leaders have followers around them. They believe that the key in leadership is to gain more followers. Now, some leaders, those leaders are the ones who surround themselves with other leaders, but that's good, but that's like a progression. But John Maxwell says, but the leaders who bring great value to organizations are those who develop leaders who, in addition to sharing the workload, make the vision to expand. Is that good? We have 4 ideas that we heard, and these are 4 uh, quotes that I learned in different trainings, and I took them from partners in ministry that some of them I don't know, some I do, but I'm going to ask them help from my friends who are in charge of the technology and the hosts. We're going to reflect. Can we go to the next slide, please? We're going to ask some reflective questions. You have them in your workbook, and we're going to answer and on those ideas. What does what do these quotes tell you, and what do these sentences above tell you about the importance of training or developing mentors? The second question is, are you developing mentors, or is your expectation of the leaders you accompany only to see them as mentees? I hope that this question makes sense, because we understand this as we are part of this initiative. We are taking the commitment to mentor others. The question is, are we seeing them only as mentees, or are we seeing beyond? And are we seeing them as potential mentors? Those are the questions to reflect upon. We can go to the next slide. We're going to work in small groups for 10 minutes and trying to answer these questions. So we are going to, please help us out, those who are hosts, Hugo, Gerson. Let's put together random groups and let's group them by languages. We are going to start to share what we know about the subject, what we have lived in relation to forming others. And this is a great opportunity to serve. So yeah.
Pero quizá al igual que la primera vez que
And so have you heard all these questions before? And we've all have had the opportunity to be mentors, or and the question sometimes that we ask ourselves is, how I'm going to mentor other mentees when I just started the training? Do I have the experience, the knowledge, the abilities to develop other mentors? What kind of mentors am I going to develop? The first question I would like, or the first idea I would like to share with you all, so in a way to encourage the vision. As we mentor, we are potentially developing new mentors. This is a clear idea. As we mentor, we are potentially developing new mentors. I compare this with the ripple effect. As you throw a rock into the water, have you done that? And then you see that there are waves that expand. Similarly to with the expansion of leaders, there's nothing more effective in developing mentors than the relationship that is built between the mentor and the mentee. In initiatives like this one, like mentoring of impact, you provide knowledge, you awake areas of interest to minister others. You invest in others. Sometimes you develop commitment to pray for others, to you facilitate synergy. You can even uh, encourage skills and abilities, but until we don't practice this, we can't talk about mentorship or forming of mentorship. The institutional efforts like this one are important because it tells me that the of the responsibility of the leadership. It talks to me about the sense of urgency in the leaders of original leaders to create a mentorship uh, culture. I think if we go to any region, any culture, we will find good mentors. The question is there a culture of this mentorship? And why is it important to develop mentors? I think the spirit of this initiative is not to recruit the best mentors, but to develop mentors and to develop a culture of mentorship. And as we talk about a culture of mentorship, culture is defined as the group of practices, um, customs that define a certain community, and these practices are passed from parents to children or from older generations to new generations. Um, the first, as we think about the culture of mentorship in the Mesoamerica region, and as I think about the group like such as this who've committed to this idea, it is important for us to be aware, for us to make a commitment as this generation of mentors, older mentors, if you will, to create this culture of mentorship. We could certify, give a certification to a group of students, but if there's not a ripple effect that will expand and will expand as a lifestyle, we will only be talking about a program, but not about a culture. So our uh, our the challenge is that we help our mentees to assume the responsibility to mentor others and for they themselves reach their potential as mentors. And we do this from the understanding that we give from grace that which we receive from grace. For me, this is connected with the blessing that it is found in serving the neighbor. I'm going to say this. Uh, One of the final thoughts for me is I am convinced that forming mentors is linked, is connected in the blessing of serving our neighbor. The second principle I would like to share with you is do we why do we develop mentors? Developing mentors is a skill. It's not a it's more like a um, handcraft ability. It's not something that it is made in a machine in a mass production way, or like we're creating photocopies of a original document. The relationship that you generate when we accompany our mentee is unique. It requires time, focus, and the person. The nature of a relationship of mentorship makes it almost impossible to invest in many people at once. The example of Jesus is a clear one. Jesus spent time with a group of 12 people, and then more specifically in a group of three. We can generate resources, programs for large groups, but relationship, the developing of mentors must be very specific. As I mentioned at the beginning, um, you can write down in your workbook, the mentor development is an artisan work. And as I share with you all, I told you that it excites me to talk about developing new leaders. I am so thankful for those who've invested in my life. Uh, They've inspired me to be a better leader, a better disciple. And I've also learned from them certain skills and principles that I've applied in my life, and I am now using those as I work with others. And if I had to make a list of all these people, which I'm not going to do today, I would have to start with my parents. And I tell you, as a father who understands the responsibility to form disciples of Jesus, as I see my children, Lucas and Jeremias, 8 and 6, as I share with them this culture of investing in others and accompany them. And again, my parents never told me, in addition to being your parents, we're going to be your mentors. They never said those words, but by their example, the way they interacted with me, how they guide me, how many times they reduced the speed of their ministry life to accompany me and my siblings. In that way, they were becoming mentors. They were assuming that commitment to help us grow, to um, make progress, and also to um, help us in our ministry. So in our home, we have a key place where we can start developing others, mentees. Yesterday, I'll tell you this very quickly. With my two kids, we went to a piano class. We love music at home. There's a person at church who is teaching piano to my older son, Lucas. Jeremias had the first piano lesson yesterday. He was a little bit nervous and he said, I don't know how to play piano. And Lucas comes and sits next to him and says, Jeremias, don't worry. That's why you're going to the piano lesson, because you want to learn. Just the fact that Lucas sits next to him and says, don't be afraid, I will be there with you. And that encouraged Jeremias, that gave him confidence. And at the end of the class, Jeremias was happy. He was excited. He was even willing to play a song, a very simple song. And when the teacher said to Jeremias, she said, "Where did you learn that song?" Jeremias said, "My brother taught it to me." So that uh, just showed me how the conversation that we have with Lucas, I never put a pressure on him and say, you must be the mentor of your brother. But he understands that he is got a privilege of being his younger brother's mentor. He's stronger. He has other knowledge that his younger brother doesn't. And he's making that available to his younger brother. So as I talk about mentorship and forming and developing mentees, is simpler than what we think, but it is more intentional than what we usually do. I hope that you follow me. I think it is simpler than what we think it is. Sometimes it's overwhelming, but it is more intentional than what we are used to do it. As we think about these ideas of forming mentors, we're potentially forming new mentors. And this is a artisan work done by hand. It's about living life with others. It's a unique relationship. It's a personal relationship. I would like to read a passage from the scripture, and that's a case study. Let's go to the next one. The biblical reflection is the birth of Moses. Is the first 10 verses. You can listen to. I think it is in the presentation. Can we look at the? I'm going to read it. Exodus 2, 1 to 10. You can follow me. I'll give a little time for you to find it. Exodus 2, 1 to 10. Very good. We have it in the workbook. So it's in the workbook. Okay. Brother Cesar Ayala says that, but I've always known him as Tito. Uh, the word of the Lord says, now a man of the tribe of Levi married a Levite woman, and she became pregnant and gave birth to a son. When she saw that he was a fine child, she hid him for 3 months. But when she could hide him no longer, she got a papyrus basket for him and coated it with the tar and pitch. Then she placed the child in it and put it among the reeds along the bank of the Nile. His sister stood at a distance to see what would happen to him. Then Pharaoh's daughter went down to the Nile to bathe, and her attendants were walking along the river bank. She saw the basket among the reeds and sent her female slave to get it. She opened it and saw the baby. He was crying, and she felt sorry for him. This is one of the Hebrew babies, she said. Then the sister asked Pharaoh's daughter, shall I go and get one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby for you? Yes, go, she answered. So the girl went and got the baby's mother. Pharaoh's daughter said to her, take this baby and nurse him for me, and I will pay you. So the woman took the baby and nursed him. When the child grew older, she took him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. She named him Moses, saying, I drew him out of the water. In relation to this passage that I just read, one of the things that really catches my attention is Moses' parents decided to protect him because they saw that he was a beautiful child. But which parent doesn't think that their kids are the most beautiful one? The pictures that we post on social media is just how proud we are of our children. We love to see them um, growing and reaching goals. I just told you a story about Lucas and Jeremiah, something that happened to us yesterday. So I just spent a few minutes talking about my children to you because as a father, my heart just rejoices and see how the older brother helping the younger brother. And I was like, my children are the most beautiful children over the face of the earth. So I understand that there are cases that this joy for the kids, it's not like I am describing to you. It's sad, but there are cases. But in general terms, we all think that our kids are the most beautiful ones. It doesn't matter their age. You can call my mom. You can call my mom and ask what does she think about me. Don't let my siblings hear her because she will say that I am her most beautiful kid. But as even as an adult, our parents still believe that we are beautiful. So in the passage, it says that the parents wanted to protect the life, protect Moses' life because they saw that he was a beautiful child. The story of Moses and how his parents uh, protected him. That is a teaching about mentorship, how we protect the new generations. But in thinking about this moment, informing leaders or developing leaders, let me share some principles. One of them is it is not popular to form mentors, but it is worth it. I use the example of professional soccer teams. There are teams that all they care about is to win. So these are usually teams that have a lot of money. And if there's a really good player, there's a player that is successful, and this team, they have the money to purchase this player, they go and buy him. It doesn't matter what the process is, what the process for this player to get to that position. All they care is that they have the financial means to offer the player a contract, and that's how they form their team. Because developing mentors requires time. It requires situations where people that we are investing on, they're not responding the way we expected. So I don't think it's very popular to develop mentors. But also, let me think about in a negative way, not just the time that you need to develop or form mentors or leaders. What are the bad motivations? If we compare the society in Exodus and the society in our days, especially in the sense of developing mentors, we can find some similarities. Just thinking about motivations, the reason Pharaoh wanted to kill all the Hebrew children is because he was afraid that the Hebrew people would increase or grow in number. If the Hebrew people would continue to grow in number, Pharaoh and Egypt in general, they would be threatened. So Pharaoh says, I don't want to have a threat. I don't want to be nervous. So he decided that if a boy was born to be killed today, we don't have that same Pharaoh that threatens the baby Moses. But today we have people, we have leaders, we have even systems that you could say they're like Pharaoh. These are people who are concerned about to keep their kingdom, and they avoid other leaders to raise. They feel threatened, and they feel jealousy about the new leaders, especially the newcomers that come with new challenges, new skills, and they feel uncomfortable, insecure. These leaders are more concerned about having more followers, but they resist the idea of investing time, abilities, resources in developing new leaders that will walk alongside others in the journey of ministry. There is a term actually that we all know and with very frequently we'll use in our conversations, especially with the new generations, influencers. You've heard it, right? That's a good example. They have the desire, these influencers, uh, um, they their desire is to have more followers, but their motivation is not necessarily to generate a positive influence to the people that they are able to reach out. The success of the contemporary influencer is measured by the number of likes, subscribers, views, or posts on social media, but not in the transformation or the positive transformation that happens in those who follow them. And the passage in Exodus says that just like Moses was hidden by his parents and put on the river with the hope of a miracle, our new generation of leaders and young leaders and potential mentors, they are growing in a culture where it's not a practice to develop new mentors in a very obscure time. That Moses' parents, they rose to the occasion and they tried to save uh, their son's life, and they didn't think or even imagine in detail what was going to happen. They had an expectation of their baby Moses, so the risk was worth it. So this passage brings to my heart a vision that encourages me, because it tells me that if we hold God's hand, tomorrow is always going to be better. Not because the circumstances are going to change immediately, but because we have the assurance that every day as we walk with by the Lord's hand, we can know Him more and more and more. As we know and we get the opportunity to know Him more, our heart aligns with hearts. Our hearts align with hearts, the heart of God. Our see what He sees, and that's the second principle that I find in this passage. We need to see with the eyes of faith. Moses' parents, they were unknown. They were people, they were part of a people that was slave people. As you see in this passage, their names were not in there. It was not until um, chapter 6 they mentioned their name as a part of the genealogy. It was not until Hebrew in 11:23 that again it mentions Moses' parents as part of heroes of the faith. That is a very interesting. They go unnoticed in Exodus, but they recognize later on by faith, Moses' parents. Moses was able to do this in the name of the Lord. So I see this by the faith of Moses' parents. We have a great teaching. They saw more than a newborn. You see your workbook, uh, as you see with the eyes of the faith, they saw more than a newborn. For this marriage, Moses was more than a um, statistics. They made the decision to protect their baby, to take care of them, even if that would mean to disobey the Pharaoh's order and to risk their lives. They saw him with the eyes of faith. When we see with the eyes of faith, we have hope. The question for us is then, how are we seeing the leaders that we are mentoring? Are we seeing them as newborns and like babies, like leaders who will always depend on us and will be destined to drink out of our wisdom? Or will we see the beauty of ministry that they are doing? Can we value their gifts and talents? And in the power of the Holy Spirit, will they be able to bless the church and to expand God's kingdom? I want to say that as I work with leaders that are rising, I hear and I see their immaturity. I see their fails, sometimes inconsistency. You can add many more things to the list, but the challenge is, can you see the beauty that is in there, the potential that they have in Jesus Christ? The next uh, point is, when we see with the eyes of faith, is that they created an environment that would protect the newborn. As you see, the parents were committed for Moses' life to be protected, so they took a risk. They were creative to take care of Moses for the first 3 months, and then to develop a strategy in which Moses would continue alive. They prepare a basket. They put the baby in, and they put him in the river. They identified the time when the Egyptian women would bathe in the river. They also put their sister very close by to take care of the baby. So when the Pharaoh's daughter sees the baby and she sees the Hebrew boy and says, quickly, look, I have somebody to take care of the baby. It's not something like by chance. There was strategy, there was intentionality. So even during the time when they were taking care of the baby, even the parents say, now we have to give our kid to Pharaoh's daughter. That's another idea. I think mentoring others doesn't mean that we are the owner of the mentee or the exclusive mentors. If we know that somebody else can come and help this person, the person that we are mentoring, let's make that happen. Let's be proactive. Let's make it happen. And finally, in the category of seeing through the eyes of faith, Moses' parents knew that God had a special purpose for him. This is a key principle, because the Church of Christ needs to see through the eyes of faith and to understand that God has a special plan for every disciple of Jesus, knowing that each one of us has a unique role in God's kingdom. As a pastor, as a mentor, I understand that I cannot apply formulas in the formation of mentors, but I cannot limit myself in the extension of God's kingdom, hiding myself in the premise of I am going to develop or form my successor. Please don't misinterpret me. I'm not saying that we should not invest in a person or others who could succeed us, but I find a very fine line when I think about only uh, forming my successor, and that line is so fine that I do only thinking about God's kingdom and just thinking about my own kingdom. And the previous training with Dr. Crocker, I think he gave a very clear answer to the question, what is the succession of leadership and our influence? I remember he said our work is not to focus only on one person, and but to invest in so many people and to help develop many people, so that when the transition, this time of transition, you will have many choices that they could do the work that needs to be done in that position that you occupy now, and somebody else will have to come and continue that work. You won't be worried because there's no one else who can do it. But in this specific subject, it's been helpful for me to see the development of leaders and formation of mentors, how to share leadership as a shared leadership. Yeah. So, in other words, uh, I have a particular role for His kingdom. The Lord has given me a particular vision that has to do with my ministry. But through that, I hope that it can be a blessing of the church and the extension of God's kingdom. But that doesn't mean that that vision I have, that I've received, is the vision that it's exclusive, or it has to be limited to the people I am accompanying. Before we go to small groups, I want to share something that happened to me a few years ago. Jeremias is 6 years old now. In one of the trips that we made, we were visiting churches when we were missionaries. So we went to the zoo. Uh, he was about 3 years old. Jeremias was probably 2 or 3. Yeah. And Jeremias, we were pushing him in a stroller, and we were walking around the zoo. And as a dad, I would get excited, and I would try to pass that excitement to my son Jeremias, who, in a way, so that he would also get excited for what I was seeing. Do you follow me? We were walking together as family. Lucas was a little older. He was walking and he was excited. But Jeremias was just on his stroller, and he was limited to see. He was little. He couldn't see a lot. He was depending on what I would tell them, what I would pass, the message that I would pass to him. So I would share the Jeremias what was happening, and he would get excited. And then Jeremias started saying, "Put shoulders, shoulders." In other words, he did not want to be in the stroller anymore. Now he wanted to be sitting in Dad's shoulders, because the vision I was sharing him, it was so contagious, so exciting, that now he wanted to see it by himself. So I took him out of the stroller. I put him on my shoulders as we were continuing walking. And brothers and sisters, I was excited as I was sharing the vision. I was also excited when Jeremias was seeing firsthand the vision. He was seeing what I was seeing, and he was seeing many more things, because this is a reality. Now I was telling him, seeing things with as an adult with glasses. I've been wearing glasses since I was 6, and my vision is limited in many ways. And my children, their vision is one that is ready to explore, to see new things, and and there's a new vision. And something important that I've seen is, as a parent, in there was a period of time in my life that I was so tired I could not play with my kids. This can happen in the leadership development. What I mean by this is that many times our leadership is weak because our legs are weak, our shoulders are weak, and we know that if we put somebody in our shoulder, we will fall down, and we're afraid of that. We're afraid of that. So this is an invitation that as we are forming and developing others, that we uh, take on the challenge to continue growing in our relationship with God, and to be humble and to acknowledge that as we are mentoring others, we are learning and we are strengthening our relationship with them, but also with God. There's a group activity right now, and I would like to go to the next slide. We're going to the next thing. There's a question to reflect on in your workbook. So this morning, I would like for you to put a face, a name to what I just shared with you all. How would you describe the beauty of the people you are mentoring, considering the characteristics of a servant leader? Uh, what beauty do you find in them, in their gifts and talents, in their journey? The next questions are personal questions, but you can also share, how do I work with leaders who have a different leadership style than mine? Can you see the beauty of God's image in them and their potential in Jesus Christ? Can I see them as leaders that God is calling me to mentor, and not just as a threat to my leadership? Okay, very good. We have 10 minutes. I'm going to ask Hugo Gerson to help us to put together the groups. You have the questions in your workbooks. So I invite you to start putting names, faces to this exercise. Yesterday, I was talking to one of the people that I am mentoring, and they were sharing to me about he was sharing a challenge, a ministry challenge, and he said, I don't think I have the gifts, the talent. And it was a good opportunity for me to put this into practice, to tell this friend and say, you have a ministry, a beautiful ministry, you have these gifts. I'm going to pray for the decisions you're going to make, but I see a beautiful ministry in your life. So if we can put this into practice in the next 10 minutes, that would be very good. Any